Yo, 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 welcome back to What Do You Know About a Mortgage? The place where we have a podcast where we introduce interesting people that I know and I think in this life are really cool in their profession. And we ask them at the end, what do they know about a mortgage? In the meantime, in between time, we want to shout out my co-host real quick, Frankie the Flamingo. Give it up for Frankie. What up, Frankie? I didn't bring your hat and your Timberlands yet. I'm sorry, Frankie. Frankie's a gangster from back east. I got to give him a Pittsburgh hat and some Timbs. But we'll worry about that later. Today we have a very special guest, man. Someone I'm honored to know. Been knowing for a long time. We're doing commercial real estate today. He's an expert in that field. He's director of leasing for, it's called Juliet
Realty.
Juliet Realty. I didn't want to mispronounce that. Yeah. Jeb Betz is in the building with us. Jeb, hey!
Yo.
What's up, my brother? How you doing?
Good.
Good to have you on set. Thank you for coming and joining us.
Thank you for having me.
All right, for those out there that don't know you, please just give us a little background on who you are, where you're from, and all that good stuff, man.
Yeah, so grew up in San Diego, came out to Vegas about 10 years ago, and do commercial real estate. Started it right after college, worked my way up through a couple of brokerage firms, C.B. Richard Ellis and Colliers, and now work for a local developer, Juliet, and I am the director of leasing for their realty branch, the brokerage team. So.
Awesome. What's that entail? What does director of leasing entail? What is your day-to-day duties and all that good stuff?
So, a traditional broker represents a landlord, represents a tenant. Director of leasing is essentially that in a nutshell, but you are the in-house guy for a specific company. So okay. Juliet, my company, is a developer. We have done industrial buildings, retail buildings, multifamily offices, and my job is to basically make sure that all of those properties stay full. So
that's what's
a broker may have a specialty in one of those different segments. I kind of do a little bit in each of them, and have a little bit more skin in the game or more vested interest. With your broker, you just need to go on to the next transaction. That's how it's set up. Get your commissions, move on to the next. I stay with the tenants after we put them in the building. We talk. I renew them.
Kind of have a relationship with them.
I renew them if they come up and they are doing good. They're going to want to stay, and I'll handle that conversation. Sometimes you need to adjust certain things in the lease, but yeah, you're basically managing the asset for the ownership and making sure that they get the money and the return that they want.
Okay, that's nice. Yeah. Listen, I'm glad you're here because commercial real estate has been something that I've been very interested in. I know a lot of people that I talk to are definitely interested. We didn't have conversations where I'm asking you, like, man, I'm thinking about getting a tropical smoothie. Right. I know it's probably about $100,000 up front, or is this amount up front? Right. What is the ROI? What is this? Things like that. And I'm guessing as I'm building my clientele and my audience, they're going to want to know a lot more about commercial real estate. Give us a kind of breakdown of the misconceptions of and the realities of what owning commercial real estate is. So for an example, I'll give you buying a 7-Eleven. If I want to buy that, I got to do my due diligence on my business development plan, all that good stuff. But once I say, hey, yeah, I'm buying it, how do they go about finding space? How do you go about finding retail space in a shopping mall or just a plot of land? Can you speak on that for us?
Yeah, for sure. So what you're talking about is it's like essentially getting a franchise or starting up your business.
Yeah.
And, if it's a 7-Eleven, a tropical smoothie, or any of these that offer franchises, there's an established brand that you are buying into. And that's where your startup costs will be, right off the bat. You're also going to probably have some construction costs, and so you'll be given a certain set of parameters from the franchisor saying we need you to be in a busy street, or the space needs to be a certain size or square footage, and then you will go out to the market and you would talk to someone like me, you would talk to a broker and identify 2 or 3 options, figure out which one is the best for you, and then move forward and on a space. And most likely it would be a lease.
So that is something that you can do. You can help people identify those locations.
Absolutely. And I've been on both sides of the table. I've been talking to the people who are, the actual franchisees who are the tenant, or I've worked for the landlord. So I know, both sides of what the key points may be. From a tenant's perspective, you're going to want to find something that you have a decent percentage of your rent and your revenue. So normally what they say for most food uses, it would be my rent can only be up to 10% of my overall revenue, because then you've got your food, your employment, all the other costs, franchise costs. So, something like sales projections could be very helpful and for you. And that's where an expert would come in and say, hey, you can expect to make this much money annually, at this location. This one may be higher rent, but the projected sales are higher. and then this one might be lower rent, but the sales obviously wouldn't.
Is that driven by expected demo, where the demographics is at, your location, all that?
So those corporations have teams of people who have research, stats, demographics, and they're looking at income levels, the population density, and that's not always go to the rich neighborhoods. Certain brands do well with middle of the road demographics and income levels,
and some do with lower income. Look at Dollar Tree
and
Dollar General, places like that.
So that's where the guidance from the overall corporations will come in and say, hey, this is what we're looking for. If you find a site that meets the criteria, then we will approve it. And if it's not, then they say, go out and keep looking. So
is produce and fresh goods harder to maintain when you're going into business as an overhead versus something like school supplies, where maybe if you did a math tutoring business location versus fresh overhead? Can you talk to that a little bit?
Yeah, so the volatility for your produce is it's much higher. Same with gas too. Like a gas station. So 7-Eleven with gas. Oil fluctuates more than pens and paper. Or a jacket. Soft goods is what they call like clothing and things that you take home and use and consume. Okay. Mathnasium is another example. We've done work with them before, and those guys do great. I know the people, and they do well. It's a good model.
No, shout out to Mathnasium. That's a great model. I've been looking at you studying the things. I'm about to pull the triggers here shortly. But go ahead.
So they offer a service, right? And so they're probably looking at a little bit more higher income or higher demographics than because that's who the people of their target customer. So and obviously their cost of goods is the employment and getting good tutors.
A fax machine, paper, pencils,
and that's going to be more set. I bet there's not a huge range in Sylvan Learning Centers, Mathnasium.
The overhead can't be that much,
right? Their tutors probably have a range of salaries. Versus like if I'm buying lettuce or milk, for example, that might fluctuate a little bit more and have a more up and down graph if you're looking at the cost of goods sold.
No, you're right. Because the reason I'm asking you that is like a lot of people think, well, I had a friend who has a business, food truck. You can only mark up chicken so much, right? You can only mark up beef so much. But then I thought about like tropical smoothie. The vegetables are not that expensive, especially if you can find a grower or you grow yourself. And mass producing smoothies is not as big as overhead, which your turn time with your vegetables sitting there is, it may be only 3-4 days, but you're really only keeping that product for maybe a day or two. So it's trying to find out those things. Those are the questions I'm trying to ask, because I know I have several friends who are thinking the same thing. Okay, if I'm looking to invest, how do I really go about what's good in the beginning stages? People may branch out after, but in the beginning stages, like I wouldn't jump into a Taco Bell right off the bat, or a Domino's or something like that, where I have staff, pizza, cheese, overhead, all those things that I may not know how to run produce. I may not know how my cost of goods should work.
Sure, yeah. I mean, it goes to supply chain. Now, some of the advantages of going with a tropical smoothie, or we'll just say any brand in general that has multiple locations, might be regional, or they have a network of suppliers, and sometimes you're actually required to use their suppliers. And
I'm sure
you may let's just say you establish a relationship with the farmer out of Central Nevada or California or wherever the case may be that gives you a better deal. You might be required to use the guys that they have in their thing, and obviously they're getting their little piece of that pie.
Everybody gets their
taste. That's how it all works. But what you see there is like if you get to a certain level, if you just start out with your first tropical smoothie, you're one out of 250.
Okay.
If you get to a point where you have 5 or 10 locations, then you might say, hey, I got a better deal. I'm going with my guy. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so just, like everything, there's leverage and there's influence that comes into play. And the more you have, the better it is for you.
Yes.
So, but to start out, it's better to take advantage of the system that the people have in place. So if I'm going in and looking at the different potential investment opportunities for food or whatever the case may be, you would use what they have in place, and that's the reason that you're paying that franchise fee.
Because they already have a model in place,
exactly.
Pretty much.
And it's like, okay, this is what I would expect to get in terms of initial investment return on that, and then as you get more experience and develop your own relationships, you may be able to better that, and then you obviously have the conversation and look at whatever contract you signed with the franchise or.
Is it more expensive, or is there a discount breaker a fee as far as like if I am coming in with 7-Eleven, do I get a discount because you own so many 7-Elevens or you work with so many 7-Elevens when you're looking for a rental space? Or if I come in with a boutique space for sneakers or anything else, am I charged a different thing? Is there a such thing as a...
From the landlord, are you asking?
Correct.
Not really. Before the financial crisis, there was a type of lease called a percentage rent lease. And well, let me back up. I don't want to get too sidetracked because I easily get sidetracked.
No, it's okay. We'll keep you on.
But for a normal strip center off of Flamingo Road, where we're at right now, you're pretty much going to have a set rate. It's going to be what the general market will
no matter
dictate,
what goes in there.
No matter what goes in there.
Okay.
Now, of course, there's a premium for a drive-through. If the space has improvements that have already been constructed that are valuable for a food, like for example, a food or restaurant has a grease trap, has a hood, all that will add to that rate. But we'll look at it this way: there's a base, then you might add a premium for some improvements. You might have a premium for being on the end cap with the best exposure. So there
What's
are
the
some
end cap? What is that?
End cap is like if there's a building with multiple tenants inside of it and it's on the end, so you get signage on 3 sides. You're visible from the street versus the one that's in between 2 different.
They don't have that same signage.
Exactly. So the end cap is more desirable than in line. A drive-through, usually we're hitting tropical smoothie a lot, but it's an easy one because everyone knows about it here, right? Yeah. So tropical smoothie has some that are non-drive-through locations, and they have others that are drive-through locations. And the difference in your annual revenue can be 30 to 50% higher if you have that drive-through. So now that's all they want is drive-throughs, right? And which is the model that a lot of food offerings, especially in that fast casual category, quick go kind of stuff, instead of like sit down waiter service type offerings, they're going to want that drive-through. But of course, landlords ask for premium on those types of spaces.
Well, you're going to get taxed, right? If you want to play and get more income, they're going to want more of a bigger taste for that space.
So I'll go back to what you were talking about before. So there are certain situations where you will be charged differently. So on the strip is a completely different animal.
I can only imagine.
And they will say, okay, what are your sales projections going to be? We want a percentage of that, and that would be called a percentage lease. So, I get 10% of your overall revenue.
Plus the lease?
There could be a floor or ceiling, but usually it's just this 10%, and you better hit these projections that you tell us. If you don't, I will kick you out and I will replace you with someone else. Damn. Now, off the strip, it's different. You're locked in. Usually 3 to 5 years is a typical lease term, and then you have some options that you can elect to exercise, which means I commit to 3 years or 5 years off the bat, and then I will tell the landlord so far in advance of the expiration that I want to stay. And there's usually like a predetermined rate, and I would say that that's very beneficial to the tenant. The landlords don't offer those in every situation, but you're going to want that if you're the tenant.
So obviously it would make sense on the strip, because they're saying they're driving you to traffic. If you're in Caesars, if you're in the Wynn, if you're in these places, we're going to have so many people come in that we want a percentage, which makes sense. And to be honest with you, I can't be mad at that if they're driving traffic to you, right?
Yeah, and most of those people hit those numbers. I mean, the amount of people that walk by, the strip every day are going to those big developments where there's...
Especially during conventions.
And they're very selective on who they want. I mean, they want certain brands. They don't want, some mom and pop or some unknown commodity. They're going after the top of the line stuff.
Speaking of mom and pop real quick, I know in other markets, for an example, in Georgia, mom and pops do really well, but in Texas and Houston, I think it is, I was doing a little bit of research, it's a lot harder. It's a lot more corporation driven out there.
Right.
Vegas happens to be actually a mom and pop friendly commercial leasing place, right? Am I right about that?
Yes. The way landlords look at it is, when they're looking and evaluating potential candidates to take space in their properties, they're going to want the lowest risk, and the lowest risk is from the corporation. So a Starbucks and a McDonald's, even if that location does poorly, they're not gonna default on their lease. Now, mom and pops are different. Obviously, they're coming from, maybe they're breaking away from one of those corporations and trying to do their own thing, or they have a new concept.
Maybe they got lump sum cash and they just started something.
Right, and so the more, if you are a mom and pop, and the way that, and so to answer your question specifically, Vegas has a lot of those. The example I like to use the most is restaurants. So on the strip, you have these awesome restaurants with celebrity chefs, and the second in command chef, very talented person, breaks off and goes to open something off strip, and therefore, it's
we see that happen all the time,
and it's amazing, right? Like I love going to those places.
Right.
I love food.
So real talk, he's the one behind there, the sous chef,
right?
Is the one hooking us
he's
up.
He's picking it all up, and the guy's like, I got the name. I'm not, you do the work, and then they get to a point where they're like, I could do this on my own. So they break off, and Vegas is filled with people like that, hidden gems, but they don't have the balance sheet of these corporations, and so their challenge is to identify a spot where they can get a good deal and that they'll get approved and someone to take a chance on them. And so, if they have a good resume, which working on the strip gives you that, then you might get some landlord to contribute some money towards your kitchen or your space, or say, I'm going to give you a few months of rent abatement or free rent as you get up and running, and go from there. So you see that in Vegas a lot, just because it's an entrepreneurial town. It's pretty business friendly, and you have a lot of big corporations that breed talent, and the talent
they really do. Really do.
And then some of these locations, end up going from 1 to 3 to 4. Skinny Fats, for example.
Skinny Fats. Yeah, that's a really good example.
Yeah, so Skinny Fats started as in an industrial center, not even a retail center. Yeah. Everyone loved it. Me and you went. There's a line out the door. Yeah. And then you see, what do they have, like 4 or 5 in town now? At least 4 or 5 now. In the north, anyway. And then I think
one over here in Southwest.
Expanded into some other states. So that's an example of someone who kind of started as a mom and pop and is now, in that regional mode where they're, maybe a little bit more than a mom and pop and not quite a multinational corporation.
Absolutely. And shout out to my boy Jay Sean and J Rock. I know they're working with Everbowl. I don't know if you're familiar with Everbowl yet.
We did an Everbowl deal. Yeah.
Actually, good. They have 2 of them already. Yeah. And I think one's in the stadium. They're doing the Legion Stadium now, too. So shout out Jay Sean, man. We got to get you on this. Quit playing, Jay. Pop out on your boy, man. So real quick, let's take it back a little bit for those who want to know a little bit more about how you came up. This is a segment we like to call Bet on Yourself. So in this segment right here, we're gonna give first of all a shout out to Oceanside's in the building. Mike, Nate, all the people I know out there in Oceanside. What up with y'all? Ashley, she'll kill me if I don't say her name right now.
I know. Can't leave her out.
Can't leave her out. But right now, Oceanside is right outside of San Diego.
Correct. North San Diego County.
North San Diego County. Beautiful, beautiful city. I got a chance to go back with you, visit the beaches, all those things. But how does one go from Southern California and San Diego area, which is very beautiful? It's expensive, but to Las Vegas, and what was a situation where you felt in that period you had to bet on yourself?
So, Oceanside, great spot.
Yeah.
Went to school there, grew up there. Went to college in San Diego and got a job with
Torpedoes.
Yeah, Toreros.
That's
it's a bullfighter of non-Spanish origin.
Yeah, I thought it was Torpedoes, man. My bad.
The first one to
Toreros.
Get that. But anyway, shout out to USD.
USD.
Great education, great times, but. I interned with CB Richard Ellis, a big brokerage firm. Most people may know that, biggest one in the world, and did brokerage for them for a few years. Actually started working the phones, worked my way up to an assistant or marketing specialist, is what they called it, and then started doing deals myself. So, kind of climbed the ladder there for several years, like 3 or 4 years, and then made a switch to Colliers, which is another very similar. I think they're ranked 3 or in the top 5, but. Basically had different opportunities with different teams and said, this is what makes sense for me. But ultimately, an opportunity did come up with Juliet Realty. And, San Diego, like you said, tough place to leave. Pretty established, book of business. Real estate's very focused on, San Diego's a different market than Vegas.
Way different.
Just some owners that work both, but, you got your connections, you build relationships in a certain area, and it's, most cases you're going to stay where you started, right?
Sure.
But this opportunity at Juliet came up, and it was something that I couldn't pass up. Like I said, the long-term nature of this, and also being on the development side versus just saying, hey, I have a space to lease. It lasts for a year at a time. It's called a listing agreement, just like a residential house or whatever. 6 months, a year. The term would expire, and then you're re-upping it again. We working on the stuff that you actually build. It starts from dirt. You build it, the construction guys, you're working with them, then you fill it up, and then you're managing that forever. And of course, sometimes you sell those off if you get the right price or whatnot. And, having a piece of that ownership in that pie was really what made me come out here. And
so
10
ownership.
years, ownership, being vested, so,
sure.
Not to speak ill of it, it's just the way it's set up. Of a brokerage group, you gotta go to the deal and go on to the next one. If that guy makes it or he doesn't, you got your commission still, you know.
Right.
Of course, you could build a reputation if you're putting a bunch of bums into space, but
right.
not to get sidetracked.
Right.
If you're owning it,
yeah.
And you're you know, starting from scratch, that's your baby, you know, you get it. And so that setup appealed to me more than that traditional brokerage setup, and that's the reason that I took the job. And then, you know, the opportunities for future growth.
No, keep it real though. How nervous were you when you was like making that decision? Because at the time, I believe you had a girlfriend, a kid, if not married already at that point.
Nah, it was.
And you made
tough.
a major move. Like, how was that? You know,
it was tough, man.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a risk for
Speak
sure.
to that.
So, you know, I was confident in myself. You always have to have confidence in yourself. I knew I was good at what I do.
Love that.
And I said, hey, I could make this happen. And if I'm playing the long game here, this is the right move for me.
Yep.
Like you said, I had a brand new baby. You know, had killed it and had blown a crap load of dough, and now I had a family to provide for, and you know, the financial crisis hit, and it was like, man, you know, I wish I wouldn't have got bottle service.
We was in our late 20s, man. You know what I mean? You know how it goes. We didn't know how to handle money like that.
Those memories are great, but you know,
exactly.
The time had shifted, and it was something where I said to myself, hey, this is something that's not going to come along too often.
And how long does it take for, once you get a deal, for it to close to get paid? In commercial real estate, I believe it's months, right? In regular residential, it's 30 days, 45 days,
right?
60
you
months.
get paid out of escrow because it's a sale usually.
Right.
So lease commissions come in first half when the lease gets signed.
Okay.
So
you do get a little bit of dough up front.
Yeah, you negotiate the deal, which you know takes 30 days to 60 days usually from the time that they initially show interest. You negotiate, then get the lease out to them, and everything signed up. So you get the first half, and then you get the second half when they open for business. So there are situations where, like a mom and pop who isn't well capitalized, runs out of money, can't finish their space, never opens, and then you don't get that second half. So anyway, first half when they sign the lease, second half when it opens.
What's the longest you've seen for someone who may be interested in going into commercial real estate? How long could be the longest until you get paid? A year, 6 months, 8 months?
I mean, most people can't go that far, but yes, theoretically, 3 to 6 months is what you're going to need to do to get ramped up. So you should have at least either low cost, low basis every month, or have some dough saved up.
Sleeping on the homie's couch or your parents'
you're
couch.
not going out too much in the beginning because it does take time.
Peanut butter and jelly sandwiches every day. Ramen noodles. You already know, chicken flavor with the extra hot sauce. Come on now.
We've all been there.
You already know.
But if you're starting to break in or trying to break in, you should really hook up with a veteran, right? And you get to a certain point where
is that easier said than done, or is it like, because if you call somebody, they may not. Sure, I don't know you, kid. I'm not taking the time to.
Oh well, shoot. So when I started in 2002. Okay, and it was like the C+ B- students with a bachelor's degree. Okay,
no doubt.
But you could talk. Okay,
right. You can hustle. You can hustle.
So that was what the model for brokers were. By the time I came to Vegas, it was like MBA, master's degree. Fighter pilots, coming out of the military, way smarter dudes than I was when I first started, and so, definitely is more competitive. So those senior guys who are established and basically are at a point where they're like, look, I either got so many properties that I need some young guy to take on the calls, or young woman. There's a lot of young women coming in nowadays. Yeah. And, they will teach you the ropes. You get to, piggyback off some of their relationships, the people they know, and you get a little bit of a runway, so to speak, where you're helping them out, you're getting a little piece of their deals, and then you could develop your own book of business and develop your own relationships. Maybe they retire, you take over. Maybe you get to a point where you develop relationships with a bunch of new landowners or property owners, and you have enough to go, hey, I'm going to just work on my own now, or you guys work out that agreement. But definitely easier for people to.
So there's a few different avenues you can kind of go. It's not like a one-way street.
Yeah, but to come in off the street to try and get someone to list their multi-million-dollar property with you with zero experience is going to be hard, right? Yeah, so you got to probably start with someone who has something and actually needs the help. So that's probably the most common.
Excellent. What we're going to do now, man, is because I have so many people interested, like I said, I kind of put a little filler out there, and I have a few questions that there may be a few, it's not algorithm, I don't even know the word I'm trying to find right now, but there's some synonyms and things like that, I guess, that I need to ask you about. Okay, so what is CAM? What is CAM?
CAM stands for Common Area Maintenance. Okay. And so that is basically the operating expenses or the additional rent you pay to the landlord. So if I'm going to lease a space, there is going to be rent that you pay, and there's going to be CAM that you pay. Sometimes it's called triple nets, which includes CAM, insurance, and taxes, but they're operating expenses for the shopping center. So things like landscaping, taking out the trash, the lighting, trash services, sometimes utilities like water might be included, and you pay a certain percentage based on how much of the overall property you occupy. So if I'm in 1,000 square feet, it's 10,000 square feet, I'm 10%, and you pay your share of operating the shopping center, and that's on top of your rent.
So we all, as a unit or in that shopping center, we all share that expense, kind of thing.
And if you're a big guy, you pay that bigger share. If you're a smaller guy, you pay a smaller share. But
is it per square foot?
It's usually percentage of overall shopping center.
Okay.
Yeah.
How to get to the cap rate?
Okay. Net operating income divided by purchase price.
Net, say that one more time.
So net operating income.
This is how you get to the cap rate.
Yeah, and that evaluates your return on investment for investment properties, okay?
Okay.
So net operating income of a property. So if it's let's just keep it simple. McDonald's pays X number of dollars of rent per year. How much do I pay for that? Spits out the cap rate. Okay. So low cap rates are better for the seller. High cap rates are better for, and those will get adjusted too. So you might negotiate the purchase price based on, McDonald's is going to have a lower cap rate than a single entity operator, or even just a 2 or 3 store operator, just because McDonald's credit is great. You can count on them paying the lease and going from there.
Okay, thank you. Only got 5, so we won't hold you too long. Explain cash on cash return.
Okay, so that's another investment tool evaluator, or sometimes it's on initial front end for development deals. So cash on cash is a metric that measures how much cash you put in and then how much you get, what your return is based on just the cash you put in. So it might differ from something that's leveraged. So if I'm using a loan, which most people do, I'm getting some money from the bank, there's an interest rate, that's a different formula than just the cash, right? And so cash on cash return just takes cash in versus cash out without factoring in the lending portion of it or the financing portion of it.
Great job explaining that. Number 4, gross operating income, net operating income. I think you just touched on that, right?
Yeah. So net operating income. So if I'm the landlord and I have the CAM charges, okay, I have certain maintenance charges. Some things don't fall into CAM, like if I got to replace a portion of the parking lot, or I'm building.
So you may be responsible for that, actually, as a store owner?
No, the store owners usually don't. That falls under, not to get too sidetracked, capital improvements usually aren't part of CAM. Okay. But it could be the responsibility of an owner. In fact, it will from time to time. And they put reserves in there, and you basically take the income from all of your rents minus those expenses. So CAM, capital improvements, other marketing if you want to do that. Gotcha. Salaries for property managers, whatever the costs are, your expenses are, minus the gross income from all of the rents of all of your tenants, that gets you to net. So gross is what they pay in rent. Net is what you take home after all of your expenses are paid.
So is this more of speaking from someone who actually owns the shopping center?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Well, I mean, businesses do that too. I mean, like we were talking about earlier, the cost of the groceries, your goods, right? The cost of your salary of your tutors for a tutoring company. That would, your gross is what I charge our families for taking your kid into the tutoring place. So gross income is X number of students times X number of appointments. And then net is what those are minus what I pay my employees, what I pay the rent. So rent would be included. Gotcha. So it works both ways.
Okay. Last question on this. What is a good ROI and how to determine that? I think everybody, would want to know that for sure. What is your return on investment for those out there who may not know what ROI is?
That's a complicated question.
Is it fully loaded? Did I just hit you?
So it all depends on your risk. Okay. So.
The greater risk, the greater reward.
Right. So if I'm like a developer for me, if I'm looking at a piece of dirt, there's a lot of risk. You gotta take a construction loan out. You gotta build it yourself. You gotta get entitlements from Clark County or the government. North Las Vegas. There's a high risk. So I'm gonna need 15%, even 20% return to justify taking that on, buying it initially, and then taking it from a piece of dirt to a building with a tenant in it. Lease up time, all of that. 10% to 12% return would be something that is good for low risk. Like I buy a established shopping center that has always had high occupancy, very little turnover, very little vacancy. And so I basically cut them a check, and I can get a check back for however long those leases last. And I don't really have a lot of risk or a lot of, exposure on my investment. And so the return's obviously going to be a little bit less for something like that. Mm-hmm. And then, the most rock solid investments might even be sub 10, and that's where you're
what's that?
So if I'm the profile for that type of investor is probably like someone who's in retirement age. I got a bunch of chips stacked up, but I can't afford a miss, and I just want something that's very stable. Mm-hmm. So I don't need a high return. I just want something that I know I could count on, which would go into that, Starbucks, McDonald's, giant corporation that's well established and has a lot of term left on the lease, and that there's another factor that kind of slides the scale. So if they have 2 years left on the lease, in 2 years I might have to go re-tenant that space. If they've got 20 years left, that check's going to come in for the next 20 years.
Wow. There's a lot to that. I'm glad we got him on today because there's so much to this. You've been great doing this. Real quick, I noticed that the industrial, on Industrial Road is like a real busy section right now for a lot of businesses and commercial leasing, everything. Yeah. Amazon, I believe, is coming in downtown shortly, or
they've got a bunch of spaces. Yeah,
I was going to say they've bought up a new land in. I know they were in Reno, but they're doing something here in Vegas. Can you speak to like what the new boom is coming in here in Vegas?
Yeah, so commercial real estate's divided into segments: industrial, retail, multifamily, or apartments, and office. And industrial is by far the hottest. And everything goes in cycles, but traditionally, Vegas was a regional player with some smaller spaces. Over the last 5 years, you've seen huge growth in the size of the spaces where we didn't have a 200,000 square foot warehouse or 500,000 square foot warehouse. There was 2 or 3 in town. Right. Now there's 20 options.
Now you see IKEA buying up big lots of land.
Yeah, and so that's attracted the Amazons of the world, and obviously Amazon. Right. In the last 2 years, we've seen them go gangbusters in their stocks
and everything. They made $1 trillion in the pandemic, bro.
But you've seen some other players. Switch is another one, the data storage, and so these big box warehouse users or industrial users are coming in and taking these big spaces. Developers are now developing these big spaces for them, and so now our industrial base has grown to where we are a destination. We're also, positioned along the I-15. So you could come to Nevada, tax-free state, some incentives, and you could still hit LA and the Inland Empire and Southern California within 1 day. You could also hit Salt Lake City in 1 day. You could also reach Phoenix in 1 day. So we're becoming a distribution hub, and that's really driven a lot of the growth in the industrial segment. But you got like I said, Switch is another one where this data storage is not a lot of natural disasters here, so they build these big warehouses and they put all their servers in, and that's where people store their.
How many more new jobs do you think that's going to bring in to Las Vegas in this area?
Yeah, that's tough. Thousands. I mean,
and does it stretch out to like Mesquite or Pahrump eventually? How does that?
Yeah, you'll see some stuff up Apex, so by the Speedway out towards Mesquite is the area that a lot of people are looking at. Over between Henderson and Boulder City, there's the new
that makes sense.
Freeway coming in from Arizona, and so there'll be a little industrial hub there, and there's going to be a ton of job growth. We were talking about it a little bit before. That's great for Vegas because it diversifies our economy. So during the financial crisis, and even during COVID, when tourism, takes a dip, we're very dependent upon tourism. And it's driven a lot of growth. It paid a ton of taxes into our infrastructure, which is the reason why we don't have income tax in a lot of cases. But having more options so that we're not so dependent upon one industry or another is great. So this distribution boom will definitely help with that. Definitely.
Awesome to hear. Well, I want to thank you for your time, and we're not wrapped up just yet, but you have given us so much. When I go back to watch this episode, I'm definitely bringing out my piece of paper, my pen, or get my laptop together because you gave us so much good information that we probably gonna have to have you back on if you're okay with that, man.
Hey, anytime, man.
Real quick, we want to pivot. Today, I'm wearing my Pittsburgh Steelers shirt because this is gonna air later, but today is Thursday. NFL kickoff season's tonight with the Cowboys and Buccaneers. I know you are a football fan.
Yep.
I don't want to hurt, your heart. You can say it if you want, but your San Diego guy, but the Chargers left, so you kind of are not with a team fully, but you do root for the Steelers here and there, right?
Right. Yeah.
All right, so you can stay. You can stay. You're welcome to come back anytime. But who you like this year to win the Super Bowl? Who's your pick? I'm gonna get it now because this is not gonna air for a while.
Yeah. All right.
So who do you like? What do you think? What's the big stories of the season, man?
Everyone's gonna say Chiefs and Bucks. Which hey, those are good teams. Don't sleep on the Bills.
The Bills.
The Bills is what I'm gonna say.
I like that. Okay. No one's talking about the Bills right now.
The Bills were great last year. Yeah. They got some good pieces around them that are established. They got some new guys in there. The defense is good. The offense seemed to coalesce last year.
Josh Allen should be fighting for an MVP. He's gonna be right there with Patrick Mahomes.
I saw he's the betting favorite.
Is he the favorite right now?
Betting favorite.
Okay,
he doesn't have the best odds, but the money's going to him.
Yeah, I mean he's a beast, and their defense is legit. They have a legit defense.
They're looking good. So that's my
okay. That's your sleeper team.
Yeah.
Okay, that's for the AFC. Give me a sleeper team in the NFC.
Oh man, I would probably go with the Bucks coming out of the NFC. But
that's not a sleeper team.
Let's say the Arizona Cardinals. All right,
that's a sleeper
AJ
team.
Green.
You think they get past Seattle and the LA Rams?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, Rams are good too.
Rams are sleep. They're loaded.
Look at that offense. They added AJ Green. Okay,
they did.
DeAndre Hopkins.
They did.
James Conner.
JJ
You
Watt.
loved Jay Conner.
No, James Conner is a great story.
Yeah.
Shout out to him for being an ex-Pittsburgh Steeler. He went to Pitt. But then added JJ Watt on the defensive end. Chandler Jones, did they work out his situation? He wanted out. Did he end up staying? I think he's staying, right?
I think he is, but I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they have a solid deal. I don't want to sound like that, but that's such a tough division with the Seahawks, who I think get less credit than what they deserve. They're a really good team. They're always solid. But the Rams, when they added Matthew Stafford at quarterback with those weapons they got, and they already got the defense with Aaron Donald, the number one player probably in football is Aaron Donald, the best guy in the whole league.
Yeah, don't
at
sleep
any
on
position. So that is a sleeper pick. You weren't afraid to jump out there on the edge. I appreciate you doing that. Right before we wrap up, we're not going to the what do you know about mortgage segment today, only because we had so much of the commercial real estate. I wanted that to kind of digest and fill in everything. And trust me, he knows real estate anyway, so asking him what he knows about a mortgage is almost like asking me. But here we go. Last few seconds, pitch anything you want, where they can find you at, your IG, if you have a professional IG, where people can find you at, how they can hit you up and ask you more questions or hire you to be their guy.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I would love to be a resource for anyone, whether it's just advice or if you need representation, development opportunities. If you have something that you want to sell and you're trying to pitch a developer, we always take a look and we appreciate people bringing anything to us. And we're very creative and agile on how we can approach things. So I'll give you my office phone number, 702-368-5834, or hit me up on email, which is Jeb, my first name, JEB, at JulietLasVegas.com.
Juliet spelled right there.
Yeah, Juliet, just like Romeo and Juliet, Las Vegas, all one word.com. And, like I said, would happily help out anyone who needs it. And,
they can use your help. As y'all know, he's stupid knowledgeable, so please hit him up. As always, brother, it's always good to holler at you.
Thank you. Appreciate you guys.
Thank y'all again for building with your boy on What Do We Know About a Mortgage. I hope y'all enjoying the content. We're going to keep trying to grow it. And before we get out of here, go Steelers. You already know what time it is, man. We out.